Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the flaws that we look for in our items when we're picking them up at the thrift store or wherever we're sourcing from. So I will be asking people to share that. So if you want to think about it, I think that we all need to have a checklist in mind of what's acceptable to us and what's not acceptable to us as far as flaws, or maybe even an exceptional thing that we're looking for, good or bad, in our items when we're picking them up. So this comes in handy when we're going to talk down the road about hiring someone. I've been thinking about having some help, and when I do, I need to be able to train someone. And if we're going to train someone, then we need to be able to give in-depth information about like pick this up, don't pick this up, and it's really that cut and dry. So, but easier said than done type thing. So we need to go over that. It's kind of like a business rule metric. And later on, we'll put that down when we do our business rules for certain. At some point, I want to go over where we have people volunteer and teach us their niche like we were sourcing for them. Because if we can teach someone to accurately source for us, then it just shows that we know our niche. But that's also easier said than done. I've tried to do it and it's hard. So I think that'd be a good exercise for us at some point. So I will start in my niche with what flaws are not acceptable or what I have to look over to see if my flaws are acceptable, or, what I look over real quick when I'm looking over a piece of jewelry. So I will check the clasp if it's a bracelet or a necklace. If the clasp doesn't work or it's broken, I don't pick up the item. That's a deal breaker for me because I don't fix anything. I don't have time to fix things and I'm not real handy. So the clasp was broke, it's staying there. The verde is a big one. So that's like the green stuff that grows on jewelry, and lots of people don't realize it, but it's contagious. So if you have a piece of jewelry that has verde on it and it's the green stuff, and you put it with some other jewelry, it can actually spread to that. It will spread to that other jewelry. It's a live type thing. So if it's got it, I usually leave it there unless it's really rare or worth really good money. If I pick it up, I will keep it separated in a baggie or something so it doesn't get on my other jewelry. And then I give it a bath with vinegar and I scrub it and then rinse it and hope it comes off. If it doesn't, I can always use ketchup. So I keep little ketchup packets from restaurants and that works too. That's a little hint for you. If it's missing stones, not a deal breaker for me, but it's got to be valuable. So I will never pick up a cheap piece missing stones. If it's an expensive piece, I've sold brooches that literally have no stones left for $100 before, but you have to know what those are. Um, it's got to be a special piece to sell missing a bunch of stones, but they will still sell. So I have to evaluate that on a case by case basis. But if it's a cheap item, missing stones is a deal breaker. If it's a faux pearl item and it's got scuffing on them, I leave them there. And usually even the more expensive ones, if it's got scuffing on the pearls, it's got to stay. What else do I look for? I made myself a list. Oh, like gold and silver toneware. Again, if it's a valuable piece, I'll think about it, but most of the time, if the gold or silver tone's too worn off, I'm not gonna mess with it because I can't fix that. It just is what it is. So, when all of us are thinking about this, we have to think about what outweighs with value. So there's different flaws it's okay, if it's worth it, but that flaw has to be less than what the value is going to be. So it's got to be something that people will still be able to see through for the value of the item. And I think we've all had thrifting goggles on before, where we get excited about a find, or we get excited about what we're seeing in the store, or we're just not paying attention, or the light is bad, and we pick up things we shouldn't be picking up. I think it happens to everybody. Or if we're processing bulk lots of things. And as we get bigger and we grow, a lot of us have to go the bulk lot model. And when we're doing that, then we have to be able to process it and evaluate these flaws, logically and with sense, not always like out of excitement. So you'll get sick of hearing me say it, but I am a constant person that says, keep emotion out of our business. And this is one of those things. I think sometimes we can be like, oh, I found this and this and this and this, and it's got unexcusable flaws, and we should just be leaving it alone. If the pin is bent, same thing. I usually leave it there unless it's a very valuable piece. Rust, I always leave there because rust is pretty unforgiving on jewelry. Stone discoloration. So if you see, sometimes you'll find a really nice piece that the stones are all yellowy. That's actually okay in a really old piece. It's forgivable. But the age has to be, the stone discoloration has to be age appropriate. So if it's going to be, if you're going to have that stone yellowing, it better be old. It better be age appropriate. The dead stone's never really acceptable unless it's a high-end piece, and the dead stones where it's totally black, it's dyed. There's no saving it. You can't clean it. Nothing you can do about it. Um, but that's another thing I look at. And if it's overly dirty, I'll clean a really nice piece. If it's really dirty and they're cheaper pieces, I'm not messing with it. I'm leaving it there. That is something that I've grown into. I used to clean. I'd clean whatever. So what are your check mark boxes? Um, Stacia, what are you looking for? What do you say no
So,
way?
some stains I know I can get out. Like, I don't know how I know this, but just from practice, I guess. But there's stains that I know that I can get out, and there's stains that I know that I can't get out. And again, it depends on the value. Like, I don't want a project on something that's not very valuable. Um, Definitely like armpits, checking buttons. On men's dress shirts, the collars have a tendency to get a little bit of fraying. What else? On pants, you need to check the crotch on the inside and the outside, because I don't want that kind of project either. Um,
You ever pick up stuff that's got a big tear in it?
no, no tears. Like I was at the bins last week for the first time in a really, really long time, and I did pick up a couple projects, but they really weren't too bad. So the price, like the price depends and the value definitely. So I try not to get too many projects. I do get a few. And then I ruin clothes when I wash them when it says dry clean only and I wash them anyway. Um, and I have a tendency to do that as well.
You
So
don't leave the dry clean only ones. You just check it out to see if you can make it work.
yeah, like a lot of things can be washed. You just need to hang dry them. But I've definitely ruined a couple of things. I've actually found a really affordable seamstress who's able, what happens is the body, like on a dress, the body shrinks a little bit, but the lining doesn't shrink. So then the lining is below the dress. So I found a really affordable seamstress and she just takes it up so I can still sell it.
Do they still make dry L? When I was
Yeah.
in corporate America, I used dry L bags or whatever, and
Yeah.
it worked pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I feel like it works okay. I don't know. On some things, it's too far gone and it really just needs a wash. So,
I used it like for a couple times and then I would take it to the dry cleaners, but it
yeah,
helped cut down the dry cleaning bill
clean.
with my
Yeah,
suits and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Russell, what do you look for in shoes? Because I know you do shoes and clothes.
Yeah. In shoes, it's for me, it's simple. It's strictly a brand, model number. They're very easy to look up and see what's the pricing is there. So it's got to hit the metrics. And then for as far as, whether I pick it up or not, the first thing I look at is the inside of the ankle area. I look for any holes, from bare feet and dragging. Um, if the insoles are there, good. If they're not, it's not the end of the world. Um, I look for any massive or any holes or tears on the fabric or the leather itself. And then I flip it over and look at those soles. And I just I always consider shoes when I'm picking them up is if these were mine, would I be at the point where I'm getting ready to start thinking about buying a new pair? Because if they're at that point, I don't want them.
Hmm.
And I don't think anybody else is going to want them either. So, you know,
I have seen some pretty beat up shoes that are pretty valuable that people will still pick up. Do you Do you still
Well,
pick those up
I
if
do
they're good?
subscribe to that theory when it comes to men's dress shoes or work boots. Um, there are many brands that people will have resold. You know, and they're okay with that. They'll buy them. Some of those older Red Wing boots can go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but if you find a pair where the sole's beat up, you can still get 40 or 50 out of it, and they'll take them and get them resold, and they'll spend 80 or 100 to get them resold. So, yeah.
That makes sense. I think, is it Larry that sells all the shoes without insoles? Do you do
Yeah.
that or
I
no?
no, if they have the insoles, I send them. If not, then I just list it, mark it that way and list it.
Yeah,
Um,
because some people don't care, right? I mean,
well, I think the vast majority of people, when they get used shoes, that's probably they're gonna buy some Dr. Scholl's or something at the local store and throw them in there regardless.
yeah, that makes sense.
And even though we take them out, we take the insoles out and we clean them properly and disinfect and sanitize and all that stuff. It's still the idea of somebody else's foot has been in here for a while and who knows what that
Right.
person was doing. And then
Yep,
as far
that
as
makes sense.
like jeans for me, I'm with Stacia. As long as the crotch areas no holes, I don't have a problem with stains. I don't have a problem with pinholes or rips or tears, depending on the jean. If it looks like it's a clean medium wash, like a brand new, like I bought them and I wore them around on a function, just to show off, then no, they got to be pretty pristine. But if they're beat up and torn up, and you could just look at them and go, yeah, this guy was wearing these to build iron buildings and throw sling concrete and roofing and all that, those are totally fine with being ripped to shreds for me.
That's good to know. So it's kind of brand specific and function specific.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, if you find a pair that's got, paint drops or stains on it or something, but they're also got wearing the knees and you can just tell they've been really worn in, that's a look that a lot of the younger generation is looking for. So why would you pass that up? You know, but at the same time, if you got a really nice pair that looks like, you've worn them 4 or 5 times in 6 years, then, they pretty much got to be perfect.
How about you, Kelly? What's a niche that I know you sell a little bit of everything. Pick a niche and tell us what your no-goes are.
Well, the smell. And you would think that some things you could wash the smell away, but some things you can't. And not just the clothing, but like new and packaged boxes, even a tag of something if it smells. And um,
That's a
yeah,
really good one. Because even jewelry, I hate
right.
opening up a box of jewelry I buy and it smells like smoke. I hate that.
Mm,
Like I don't
yeah,
care that like people, you do use smoking, but like when I open up a box of jewelry and that's all I can smell, like I have to sit outside for a couple days to get it to, because otherwise when I take my piece of jewelry, even if I wipe it down and I put it in a baggie and then it's sealed, when people open it, they're gonna get that smell again.
yeah,
So that's a really good one.
yeah. I came across some really, I can't remember the brand of shoes, men's shoes, nice, did the comps and all that, but they just reeked of smoke. And
Hmm.
I listened to some of the old shoe calls and they had a lot of great ideas, but I didn't know that jewelry could retain that smell. But I've had lots of different things, collectibles and things that yeah, smoke and other things, like kind of unidentifiable things. So along
That
with
we probably don't want to know. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Larry said he got a negative feedback from a buyer that mentioned from a jewelry box he sold smell like smoke. Yeah, and sometimes they do. And then I feel like sometimes when we trap it in a package and then it sits in it, while we're mailing it, I feel like, like a jewelry box, for instance, if it happened to be a wooden one, those things will soak in smells. And then sometimes they don't feel like, we may not be able to smell it quite as well until it gets trapped in a plastic bag or whatever to get sent. So we have to kind of watch that.
Like
Yeah,
Stacia and Russell said, that basement smell, I've come across that a
mhm,
lot
that
with
musty smell.
yeah, it's
It's
awful.
hard to get out. So we got to check that too. Use our sniffer. Yeah, ozone does work to get it out. With jewelry, the best one is to lay it out in the sunshine for a couple days. Sun is great for smells. I don't know if I don't think it's just me thinking that. I think it really works. Um,
Wait, can I share something real quick?
yeah, please do.
So early on, I've learned a lot from you, Carrie, and there's a lot of mistakes I don't make anymore. I learned a lot from all y'all. But early on in my eBay career, I bought at a very cheap price a whole shitload of Beanie Babies. Is that what they're called? The little, yeah.
Mhm.
And like a lot of them, and they smelled like grandma's or attic. And so I put a big 6-foot long table in my backyard and spread them all out and had them, soak up the sun and fresh air. It worked to some degree, but not entirely. But that was my first and last Beanie Baby story.
Well, I think it probably matters with the material too. It works pretty good for
Yeah.
jewelry, but Harry is right. Like cheap vodka works great for removing odors. Yep. Yep, and Jamie's right. A little for you, a little for the clothes. They, it works. But it does really work for clothing and stuff to spray cheap vodka on it. So yeah, you've got to use our nose, got to watch out for, if we're not good at smelling stuff, like you really do have to ask somebody, because some of us don't have good smelling abilities. We got to ask somebody. How about you, Larry? What's your no-goes? You have different niches you sell in.
Yeah, I just made note of a few things. One was definitely smoke, cigarette smell of practically anything. Because as I mentioned, or you mentioned, I had a negative complaint about a wooden box. I mean, and I didn't smell it. I just boxed it up and shipped it out. But I don't anyway. No go for me. It was on golf clubs. If there's deep scratches, that's a huge amount of work to get rid of. So if you're looking at golf clubs, especially on the face, if there's scratches on the face, they're basically garbage. Scratches on the bottom are okay, but they require sanding and polishing to get it out. The other that where I've made mistakes is that they might look great on the heads, but the grips are bad. Grips are fairly easy to replace. They're fairly cheap to replace, but they take probably 3 to 5 minutes a piece. And if you've got, a set of 9 irons or whatever, you're looking at a half hour to 45 minutes to change out the grips, plus $5 to $7 a piece or so on each grip. So if you can get them cheap and they've got issues, fine. But a couple of times I've gotten really excited and made some purchases and ended up dropping a bunch of labor just to make it work. Another thing I do is a lot of times I'll buy food processors, especially in Ninja brand, and part it out. And what I will pass on any blender if it's got way too much food crud in there, because people just are really turned off by food. I know how to get it out of there. I got a little steamer. I can,
It's supposed to be live streaming, but she's never live streaming.
I can
So
blast
gotta
out
join
the
feelings.
crud. But the other deal breaker on blenders is if they're used a lot and they have a lot of micro scratches on the plastic bowls, you can't get that out. I mean, I guess you could polish it, but really kills the resale value on the bowls if they're micro scratches. And then one last one I got is incomplete tool sets. So a lot of times I'll get excited. I see a complete set of Craftsman wrenches or a complete set of snap-on sockets, but it's missing one. There's nothing worse than having a 17 set of sockets and it's missing one to kill the value and make you have to drop your price by 25-30% just to get rid of this stupid thing. So those are some of my no-goes, or at least warnings that to look out for as you're buying stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one. The good one about the labor, sometimes I think that we have to consider the fact that our hourly rate, if we are going to work on something or fix something or clean something, and now it took out all of our profit with our labor, that doesn't make any sense. So, and Jamie, who sells all magazines, he said that the mildew smell, he can get smoke out, but nothing takes this wet basement smell out of magazines. That makes sense. Yeah, I would leave that alone too. You know what? I had a really bad lesson was our enclosed trailer that Rowdy and I use for flea markets, it's very dry, it doesn't leak, but it doesn't breathe either. And I had boxes of antique books in there. And when I opened up the trailer and all those antique books were swollen and wet, I could not figure out how, well, it was it was from getting hot and cold and just the fact that there's no ventilation in there. Because I sealed it up, we made sure when we got it, we sealed it really tight so nothing got wet. And it just ruined all those books. And I hadn't even thought about it. So yeah, moisture is not our friend sometimes with our products here. Harry, how about you? Are you working yet? I don't
Well,
want to bother you if you're at work.
I'm kind of, but I don't have a whole lot to do at the moment. So, flaws. Let me. Well, from an instrument point of view, there's a certain dents in certain places that's just not worth taking out. If there's a dent in the bottom of a trombone slide, it's way too much work to take out. I've done it before, and every time I do it, I regret it. And pretty much with clothes, I've gotten to the point, if I see a flaw, I pass unless it's something really nice. Yeah. But the bad thing about clothes is you go to picture them and then you go, heck, there's a little hole. I found out last night I had a really nice Zynga sweater, and I'm like, oh, this is I was looking at it, and then there's this little hole on the shoulder, and I'm, golly, why didn't I see that? I think it's actually going to end up being mine because I liked it anyway. But anyway, so but I've started taking a flashlight to the thrift, and that's like my last go. Is I look through it all with this flashlight to help me see holes, or it does help you see, but more than anything else, it focuses your attention, or focuses my attention. So I look at every button, I look at, crotches, I look everywhere to make sure there's nothing that I just flip over without when I'm going through otherwise.
Yeah, Stacia said it makes her so mad when she finds the flaws at the photo stage. So that's basically when I find everything, it seems like. I get it in my light box, and the light box is pretty unforgiving. It makes me so mad because usually I've even cleaned it at that point. And then I get it in the light box and I'm like, this isn't gonna work. Apologize.
I have a little stack next to my photo area that I'm just like, okay, there it goes. Not terribly big, but it's bigger than I like.
Yeah, me too. I apologize for Molly. My dog is just snoring up a storm this morning.
I have some cleaning supplies right next to my photo spot just to deal with those last minute shoots, some Windex and paper towels and a microfiber cloth.
Well, if it's like clothes and it's a stain, I'll run it through my process again, maybe a couple times. And I use the little trick that Michelle had, that I put a clothespin on it so that I know to specifically look at it and treat them.
That's smart. Let's see, we had a few people in the chat put in what they do. Jessica said for her, most stains on linen are the most difficult to remove. It's so easy to ruin it. Double or triple check for holes on cashmere, cuffs, underarms, and then hem area. If she sees one, for sure there might be more. That's a really good point. Sometimes, where there's one, there's more. So it's a really good indication. I think the same thing with rhinestones. If I find one missing, I'm going to keep going over it just to make sure I'm not missing another one. iPhone says shoes and boots that are dry rotted early on. She sold never worn pair of Red Wing boots for $150. I wore them once and soles fell apart. He was super cool and I was mortified. Wish that was the only example I could give. And now she bends the heck out of her footwear. Yep, we've seen it. We've seen the people that have sold the shoes and they fell apart while they were walking down the street, and it makes them super happy to talk to you about it too. So you're not the only one that's happened to. It's happened to lots of people. So yep, bend our footwear, people. Hey, it's Carrie with Reseller Revenue. Just wanted to come on and let you know if you'd like to see more of this, if you'd like to see more of my daily calls Monday through Thursday and you'd like to participate, please go to Reseller Revenue Patreon group, and that's how you join our Facebook group also, is through that link. And you can join our morning calls, which we meet every day, Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Central Time. And then we have other calls afterwards, like we have shoe call, a clothing call. We have a bunch of different kinds of calls. Also, the jewelry call that I do with Finds of Yesterday is on Tuesday mornings following the morning call. And also, you can get information on how to get personalized one-on-one coaching for an additional fee. From me, we'll review your store. We'll go through different ways you can improve your listings. So I'd love to have you. Please check out Reseller Revenue on Patreon.